Hi everybody, this is Johnny Hunkins at Popular Hot Rodding Magazine, and today we are here at Edelbrock's R&D and Engineering Facility in Torrance, California with our 1968 Nova project car. We're here today because we're going to be installing one of Edelbrock's E-Street EFI systems on our 400 cubic inch small block Chevrolet. Our engine makes about 520 horsepower with a carburetor, and we're curious to see exactly how well we can get it to run with one of these brand new E-Street EFI systems. What I like about this is it's really easy to install. It just bolts in place of a standard carburetor, and this particular system also happens to be self-learning, which means answer just a few questions and the computer will actually take it from there and adjust all the fuel parameters for perfect driving and maximum power, all that kind of stuff. Now, it also comes with this pad, this computer pad here, Android device, which will aid in the programming of the computer, if you will. Actually, you have to answer some questions to set it up. In this particular case, there is no wire or harness that goes to the unit. It actually operates on a Wi-Fi basis, so the tablet is communicating directly with the computer. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But before that, we want to show you some other really cool thing too. For you guys who don't like the complexity of EFI systems because of the fuel system, you'll be happy to know that Edelbrock has a universal fuel sump kit. And basically, in a normal fuel injection system, you have to put a EFI pump in the tank and run extra fuel lines. You have to have wiring harnesses and relays and all that stuff. The car's on a lift. You have to get that fuel system basically all set up. But in the case of the sump kit, what we have right here that Mark's trial fitting into our car is the sump right here. And basically it's a very small fuel tank with its own fuel pump, inlets and outlets, and you can see what it looks like right here. Very compact, fits right under your hood. And what's cool about it is your factory mechanical fuel pump feeds it. So you already have a fuel system in your car, why not use it? So we're going to take our fuel right straight off of our mechanical fuel pump. It's going to feed that small sump tank, and then the sump tank is going to get the fuel at the proper pressure and feed the throttle body. And you never have to do anything except for work under the hood of the car. You don't have to put the car on a lift or go and change the tank out or anything crazy like that. So we're going to show you how that's done today. So fasten your seatbelts and take a look. Edelbrock's Universal Sump Kit is based around this high impact cross-link polyethylene plastic reservoir. That's a mouthful. And basically inside of it you have a complete fuel system, a pump, you've got floats that activate the fuel coming in and out of the unit, so it keeps the right amount of fuel in it. Now, I am told that this is going to give you the same kind of performance as a high-performance, high-G style custom fuel system, where basically if you're going around corners really hard, normally you might have some fuel starvation and a standard tank, which is why you normally have to sump a tank or even put a custom fuel tank in it. When you put Edelbrock's Universal Sump Kit in there, basically you don't have that problem. You can take all kinds of lateral G's or braking or acceleration, and the fuel's always going to be around the pump pickup. So kudos to Edelbrock for thinking of that, because a lot of you guys out there in popular hot rodding land, you're going to hit the autocross or the road course or the drag strip, and you don't want your engine cutting out when you're going around corners or hitting the brakes hard. One thing that I didn't mention earlier about Edelbrock's Universal EFI Fuel Sump Kit is that it can be used with any EFI system, not just Edelbrock's E-Street system. So if you're looking for a fuel system solution that's simple and you've got some other kind of EFI system, you can get this kit and it will be compatible. And you won't have to change the tank, you won't have to add fuel lines, you won't have to sump your existing tank, or swap it out. You have to find a place in your engine compartment that's large enough to fit the Edelbrock fuel sump kit. That's not that hard to do. We actually found a place on the radiator core support near the engine, so there won't be a very long fuel line run. Let's take a closer look at the E-Street throttle body assembly. One of the cool things about this is that virtually the entire wiring harness plugs into something on the throttle body. So for instance, on the side you have your injectors. Your harness plugs into the injectors on both sides. You have an idle air bypass solenoid there, which is another controller that plugs in. On the side over here we have a manifold absolute pressure sensor, which is important, as well as next to it you got a inlet air temperature sensor and throttle position sensor on the side. A lot of times when you put an aftermarket carburetor on an engine, you have to put a spacer that's got extra ports for vacuum. Well, the Edelbrock throttle body assembly has all multitudes of different ports, sizes, and descriptions of vacuum, whether they're ported vacuum or to operate your PCV or your vacuum boosted brakes. You've got all the proper vacuum ports already included in the throttle body assembly. The Edelbrock E-Street throttle body comes with 4 60 pound-per-hour injectors, and at the rated pressure, that's enough to supply around 600 horsepower naturally aspirated. We're going to take just a little break right here. I want you to see something that I spied. Edelbrock's working on right now, and they're getting ready to put it out on the market. It is a supercharger kit. I don't know anything about it, but they're getting ready to uncork this thing on the market, and I think they're going to sell a ton of these. Can you rev it up a little bit? Wow. Sweet. It actually has got the new TVS style rotors in it. It looks very classic, but it is state-of-the-art in terms of its compressor technology. We're going to know more about it a little bit later, but just remember, you saw it here first. Man, this thing is just gorgeous. Alright, back to our E-Street installation. The coolant temperature sensor is one of the sensors that's going to have to actually be mounted outside of the throttle body and on the engine, and it informs the ECU for cold start enrichment and also warm-up. But before you start wiring anything up, you have to decide where you want the ECU to go. Now there's a couple of choices we've got here. We can mount it on the fender there on the driver's side, or we could possibly mount it on the firewall here. And a third choice would be in the car itself. One of the things we wanted to do is have it out here in the engine compartment so that people could see it. Now the reason why you want to put the control unit in first is because you've got to really decide where you're going to route all your harnesses. You've got injector harnesses, sensor harnesses, you've got power wires, and so you have to really determine where that ECU is going to go first before you start wiring or connecting anything up. One of the things you want to do is transfer your linkage components over from your carburetor to your throttle body. That way everything will hook up back to your car with no problems. You got on this car, you got your TV transmission cable linkage and your throttle linkage on the top. It goes without saying that in the course of installing your E-Street unit, you're going to be installing the throttle body several times to mock it up for different reasons. At this particular point, we're actually trying to get the vacuum lines run. Now, once you decide where the control unit's going to be, it's just a matter of plugging up all the sensors and actuators. Now, sensors feed the ECU with information that it needs to make a fuel calculation, where an actuator is something that allows the computer to act on the throttle body, such as an injector or idle air control solenoid valve. So you're going to actually hook up the connectors for all of those where it meets the throttle body. Now, there are two relays that are part of the harness that have to be mounted somewhere in the engine compartment. We're actually mounting them right next to the control box in two holes that are already in our fender. So one of these relays actually operates the ECM, and the other one operates the fuel system in our universal Sump fuel system. Basically, the first one, once you power up your car and turns on the ECM, then the injector driver circuit inside the ECM then turns on and turns the power to the fuel pump so that it can begin priming. So that doesn't take but just a few minutes to get that hooked up. You will have to run a power wire from the ECM to the battery, and in our case we're going to mount it to that power bus right there. Well, we rewired this car last year with the Painless Wiring Performance Kit. We actually put a bus fuse right there, so that's going to come through there and get hooked right to that. What Mark's doing right now is preparing a line that's going to feed the universal sump tank. That line actually comes from the mechanical fuel pump. He's already got this fuel filter mounted on the side of the tank, which you can put that anywhere, but I just thought it looked a little bit better on the tank there. And he's got some push lock fittings that are going to attach to the inlet and outlet of the tank right here. And so he's just getting all the fuel lines ready and getting the push lock fittings prepared. Push lock fittings are cool because they can go together real quick. In this case, what Mark's done is he's heated up the end and then put a little bit of lubricant on it, and then you just push it onto the fitting. And show us that fitting real quick. Look how clean that is. Nice and tight fitting with a nice seal to it. Well, the fuel system line is run. It actually starts right here at the mechanical fuel pump. It runs up here, goes into the inlet side right there. Then it comes out here, out of the high pressure pump, and goes into the high pressure fuel filter. And then continues on into the fuel rail on the throttle body. It's very elegant, very simple, and easy to do. Now, the Edelbrock ECM requires a tach input, and we have a HEI distributor in this car right there, and we've run a wire from the tach output around the fender and then out here and onto the harness that's provided in the Edelbrock kit, and that just connects right here to the harness for the ECM. So now we have a really good solid tach signal. Mark, we're getting ready to hook up this ECM here to the power wire. Tell us what we're doing and what we need to look for.
Okay, the pink black wire on the harness requires a switch key on source. So we found a power wire here that has 12 volts during cranking and key on. So we're going to tie the two of these together.
Well, the E-Street kit operates off of a wideband oxygen sensor, and you have to weld in a bung to the exhaust system. Edelbrock gives you all the measurements where that needs to go. We already happen to have one here for some previous dyno testing, and the oxygen sensor, which is a wideband unit, it just installs right there, just screws right on in. Well, all the wiring checks out. All you need to do is put the air cleaner back on, and once you do, you won't even see the fuel injection. It'll just look like a carbureted car.